Okay, good morning everyone.
Recording in progress.
Okay na kayo? Nandito na lahat? Okay, so for our first lecture during this semester, school year 25-26, sharing his knowledge about the topic on medical parasitology, which is one of his specialties. Seventh placer of the 2026 Medical Technology Licensure Examination. Actually, isa lang to sa mga specialties niya. Okay? Uh, narinig ninyo ang pangalang Roderick Balse, okay? Kahit anong itanong niyo sa kanya, kaya niyang sagutin about medical technology. Wala talaga siyang specialty. Okay? So, iyon. Pero para tulungan kayo at share ng kanyang knowledge, again, this is Mr. Roderick Balse, who is a national reviewer for various review centers, and also a lecturer, a an instructor at the UERM School of Medical Technology or College of Medical Technology. Okay? So, yon. And please take notes, guys, kasi marami kayong matututunan. Okay. So, ito na ngayon, guys, si Sir Balse.
Grabe naman yun, sir. Thank you so much. So good morning once again. This is Medical Parasitology Review, and today we aim to cover the introductory topics, diagnostic techniques, and at least half of the protozoans. Okay, so let's start right away with the first topic. It's important that we start because this will also serve organisms or groups of organisms that we will cover in this lecture. And it will be in this exact order. So protozoans, and then the other unicellular parasites, the helminths, and we will also include in our lecture the arthropods because of the important roles that they play in parasitology. Okay? So, first, let's talk about parasite nomenclature. Okay? Of course, we follow the binomial system or the Linnaean system. So, I still use the traditional classification scheme for parasites. Okay? And in the binomial system of parasite nomenclature, just like for other organisms, each species is given two names. The genus, which is the taxon to which the species belongs, and the specific epithet, which is a trivial name that identifies a species within a genus. Okay? So, shown here is an example. And of course, there are also rules in writing scientific names. Okay, so only the first letter of the genus is in uppercase, and the entire name is either italicized when typewritten or underlined when handwritten. Okay, and as I said, each organism or species is binomial with two names, right? The first name here is the genus, and the second name is the specific epithet. Do not refer to the second name as species because the species name is this entire name. Okay, so that is the species name. Okay, that's a common mistake, not to refer to the second name as species. It cannot be species. Okay? Sa halimbawa, kaya yan, o Balantidium, o Entamoeba. Okay? So the species name is the entire name. Each species always binomial. Okay? Another common mistake, no? Omission of the S in species. Always species, singular or plural. It's always spelled out and pronounced with an S. Okay? So that's it. Those are the rules in writing scientific names. And again, here's the parasite groupings, no? Classification. The protozoans belong to three important protozoans of medical importance belong to three large phyla, namely phylum Sarcomastigophora, phylum Ciliophora, phylum Apicomplexa. Right? And in general, protozoans are unicellular eukaryotes. Okay, unicellular eukaryotes that divide by binary fission. Okay? Again, that's general characteristic because the apicomplexans are an exception in many respects. No? So, the first phylum, Sarcoidae and the flagellates. Okay? So, the amoebae, you can write it that way or pwede rin yung ganitong spelling. Ayan, amoebas or amoebae if there's an E there. That's plural. Amoebae and the flagellates belong to phylum Sarcomastigophora. Dalawang ano yan, subphyla. Phylum Sarcodina includes the amoebae and phylum Mastigophora includes the flagellates. Okay? Phylum Ciliophora, of course, includes the ciliates. And there's only one medically important member, which is Balantidium coli. Okay? So there are, of course, many ciliates, many species of ciliates, but since we are giving emphasis on the medically important ones, so let this phylum be represented by Balantidium coli, B. coli, there. And as I was saying, the apicomplexans differ from the first three groups. Bali, three ito kasi morphologically distinct yung amoebae sa flagellates, although they belong to the same phylum. Okay? So, ang similarities ito, una, they divide asexually. Asexual ang reproduction. Okay? Asexual reproduction. As I said kanina, binary fission. Okay? Number two, the trophozoite stage is always motile, right? Or provided with locomotory organelles. Okay? So with locomotory organelles or organelles of locomotion. Okay? Locomotory organelles. Ayan. So obvious naman, flagella kapag flagellates, cilia kapag ciliates. The amoebae have pseudopodia or pseudopods. Okay? Amoebae have pseudopods, flagellates have flagella, ciliates have cilia. Okay? And therefore, the members of phylum Apicomplexa, which are called coccidians. Pwedeng apicomplexans, pwedeng coccidians. Yan, coccidians or sporozoans. Right? They differ from the first three groups, from the members of the first two phyla, in terms of reproduction and locomotion. Okay? Because these are capable of both sexual and asexual reproduction. Alternation of generations, no? Sexual and asexual reproduction. There. And they don't have definite organelle of locomotion. There can be one or two stages in their life cycle that may exhibit motility, but unlike the first three groups, no definite organelle of locomotion. Okay? There. So you may also take note of that, no? So no definite organelle of locomotion. There. Now, I said that the protozoans are unicellular eukaryotes. May mga iba pang unicellular parasites but are not protozoans. Okay? That's why sineparate ko siya. Although, in some textbooks, they are included in tables for protozoans. Okay? But take note that, well, at some point, some of these may, or some of these were considered as protozoans, but we now know that they are not protozoans. So what are they? If they are not protozoans, well, Blastocystis species are now classified as Stramenopiles. So, yun na yung classification nito, no? Stramenopiles. Nakita mo yan, SPP. Pag SPP, many species, multiple species. Pag SP lang, single species. When you abbreviate species, SP singular, SPP plural. So this means many species of Blastocystis. They are considered Stramenopiles. Okay? The Microsporidians and Pneumocystis cerevisiae are fungi. Okay? So I have representative genera in your handout. Okay? Encephalotozoon, Enterocytozoon species. They are intestinal microsporidians. And we consider them obligate intracellular fungi. Okay? And Pneumocystis cerevisiae, which used to be Carinae, now Cerevisiae. Okay? Meron ding spelling na single I, pero this is the updated name, no? It's double I, Cerevisiae. Okay? It's an atypical fungus. Atypical fungus. Which at some point was also considered a protozoa because of similarities with the sporozoans. Okay? Part of mycology. Dinidiscuss din ito sa mycology because they are now considered fungi. Okay? Of course, another large group of parasites, the helminths, include members of phylum Nematelminthes, which are the nematodes or the roundworms, and members of phylum Platyhelminthes, the trematodes or the flukes, cestodes or tapeworms. Okay? All nematodes are non-hermaphroditic. So ito yung mga non-hermaphroditic helminths. Okay? That's a rule. All nematodes are non-hermaphroditic. All cestodes are hermaphroditic. Okay? But for the trematodes, most are hermaphroditic, but the schistosomes are non-hermaphroditic. So we may just say hermaphrodites, okay? The nematodes. Ito lang ang exception sa buong phylum Platyhelminthes. Only the schistosomes are non-hermaphroditic. Okay? And as I said, we will also include in our discussion the arthropods because of important roles that they play in medical parasitology as parasites themselves or as vectors. Okay? And here are 3 classes of arthropods and their representative members. Okay? So under class Arachnida, the arachnids include ticks, mites, and chiggers. Okay? And of course, notable ang tick or ticks because they serve as a vector and at the same time definitive host of Babesia. Okay? And some mites are ectoparasitic. Okay? Sarcoptes scabi, for example, is a mite and is ectoparasitic. Okay? Chiggers serve as vectors of certain bacterial species. No? Sa bacteriology ito, Orientia chuchugamushi. Okay? Vector of Orientia chuchugamushi. The insects include mosquitoes, flies, midges, bugs, lice, fleas, beetles, cockroaches. And again, they have multiple roles. No? Mosquitoes are both vectors and definitive hosts for Plasmodium. Okay, and vector din yan ang filarial worms, certain filarial worms, Cerere and Brugia. All right? Flies include blood-sucking flies and house flies. Yung mga blood-sucking flies may also serve as vectors for certain filarial worms. Okay? So are midges, di ba? Vectors din yan ng certain filarial worms. Bugs, either kissing bugs, which serve as vectors for Trypanosoma cruzi o kaya naman bed bugs, which are intermittent parasites. Okay? Lice. Oh, we'll talk about this again later under ectoparasites, no? Marami yan, no? And then fleas, beetles serve as intermediate host of Hymenoleucus and Dipylidium. Okay? Let's take note of that. Kasi itong mga iba dito, madidiscuss ko ulit. Maya-maya lang. So ito, intermediate host of Hymenoleucus and Dipylidium. Okay? There. And cockroaches are mechanical vectors of enteric parasites. Madidiscuss ko din yan, maya-maya lang. Okay? And also, included under this group of organisms are the crustaceans, crabs, crayfish, and copepods. Okay? Ito, must know din yan sa board exam. Crabs, fresh water crabs, and crayfish serve as second intermediate host of Paragonimus westermani, di ba? Second intermediate host of Paragonimus westermani. Ayan. Okay? And copepods serve as intermediate host for many parasites, helminths. Okay? Ito yung mga Cyclops and Diaptomus species, no? Cyclops and Diaptomus species of copepods serve as intermediate host of Dracunculus medinensis, D. medinensis, okay? And as first intermediate host of the Pseudophilideans, Diphyllobothrium latum, as well as Spirometra species, Pseudophilidean din ito, Spirometra species, and the nematode Natostoma spinigerum. Okay, Natostoma spinigerum. There. So, the only intermediate host of Dracunculus, first intermediate host of Dilatum, Spirometra, and Natostoma spinigerum, meaning meron pa silang second intermediate host. Okay? And there you have the arthropods. Okay? So, we're done with the first part. Let's now talk about another important introductory topic, host-parasite relationships. Okay? For you to have a better understanding of the biology of its parasite, we have to uh, review the basics of host-parasite relationships. Okay? Of course, the all-encompassing term is symbiosis. These are all symbiotic relationships, no? Mutualism, commensalism, parasitism. Because when you say symbiosis, just the living together or association of or between two phylogenetically different organisms. And of course, in the context of parasitology, when you say phylogenetically different organisms, we are talking about the parasite and its host. Okay? And again, the relationship may be described as mutualism, commensalism, parasitism. With emphasis on parasitism, of course, because this is parasitology. Okay? Pero may mga organisms tayo na mame-mention later, which may be considered commensals. Okay? O i-define muna natin. Defined in your handout, but simply put, pag sinabing mutualism, right? Plus plus, both organisms benefit from the association. Okay? Beneficial to both organisms. Right? Pag commensalism, plus zero. One organism benefits, or the relationship is beneficial to one organism, neutral to the other. Meaning the other organism is neither benefited nor harmed. Okay? At kapag parasitism, plus minus, di ba? One organism benefits, the other is harmed. Beneficial to one organism, harmful to the other, harmful to the host. Okay, and again, most organisms that we'll talk about here are, of course, parasites or belong to this. relationship. Okay? There. And let me also talk about the epidemiologic triangle, which represents the interaction between the agent and the host in an environment that supports the transmission of the agent, in this case, parasite, okay, to the susceptible host. Okay? So kaya triad or triangle, right? The agent is transmitted to the host acquires the agent, the infectious agent, or the parasite in an environment that supports the transmission of the parasite to the host. Okay? And of course, sa microbiology, um, more elaborate yung model ng disease causation, the so-called uh, chain of infection. Okay? Pag chain of infection, with 6 links. And those are what we will discuss individually here. Sa isahin natin yung mga components of the so-called chain of infection na applicable din sa parasitology or sa parasitic infection. Okay? And ano yung mga components na yan? Of course, the host, the agent which is the parasite, okay? Mode of transmission, portal of entry, portal of exit. Okay? So, yun yung mga isa-isahin natin dito. May vector pa. Some parasites require vector. Okay? There. So, let us first talk about the host. And in parasitology, we use different terms now in referring to the host. And let us first distinguish between definitive and intermediate. Ano bang difference niyan? It's always the stage of the parasite which the host harbors. Okay? So we take note of the stage of the parasite which the host harbors. Okay? Doon mo masasabi kung ang role ba niya ay definitive or intermediate. Hindi laging man ang definitive host. Man may actually serve as intermediate host. Okay? Depende doon sa stage which the host harbors or carries. Okay? Ayan o. Pag definitive, harbors the adult stage of a helminth or the sexual stage of a protozoan. We use the term sexual, asexual when referring to protozoans. Adult, larva when referring to helminths, of course. Okay? Let me give examples. Mga most notable. Lalo na sa board exam. Dating tinanong sa board exam, no? Cat, for example, sulatin nyo dyan sa right column. I'll give 2 examples per type of host. Okay? So, cat serves as the definitive host of Toxoplasma gondii. The only definitive host of Toxoplasma gondii is cat. Needless to say, the sexual cycle of T. gondii happens in cat, in the intestinal cells of cat. Yun ang ibig sabihin nun. Okay? Ano ang nasa cat? Yung sexual forms, sexual stages. The sexual cycle takes place in the intestinal cells of cat. That's why cat is the only definitive host of Toxoplasma gondii. Okay? Mosquito, right? Mosquito serves as the definitive host of Plasmodium species, di ba? Definitive host of Plasmodium species or the malarial parasites. If you want to be more specific, the female Anopheles mosquito. Okay? The female Anopheles flavirostris mosquito serves as definitive host of Plasmodium species or the malarial parasites. And that again means that the sexual cycle of Plasmodium happens in the female Anopheles mosquito. Okay? But of course, for many parasites, man is the definitive host. Lalo na yung mga helminths. Kaya hindi na ako nagbigay ng example dyan. Okay? Now, how about intermediate host? The intermediate host harbors the larval stage of a helminth or the asexual stage of a protozoan. Okay? And let me again give examples. No? Man serves as accidental intermediate host of Echinococcus species, granulosus and other species, no? Accidental intermediate host of Echinococcus species. Ayan. So you see, kasasabi ko lang, hindi laging definitive host ang human host. In this case, intermediate host ang tao in cases of high-dati disease or echinococcosis. Okay? And I'm specifying accidental. Kasi, ang natural intermediate host ng echinococcus ay sheep or pwede ring rodent sa mga ibang species. Okay? There. Ang definitive host ng echinococcus ay dog. Right? Or canids. There. Another. Ito, must know din to sa board exam. Snail. Okay? Snail or mollusk serves as intermediate host of the trematodes or flukes. Walang exception. Lahat ng flukes, lahat ng trematodes, be it lang liver intestinal flukes or the schistosomes, lahat sila require a snail host for their intramolluscan phase of development. Lahat ng trematodes may intramolluscan developmental phase. Kaya lahat nagre-require ng snail. Of course, pag schistosomes, that's the only intermediate host. Pag lang liver intestinal flukes, meron pang second intermediate host. Okay? So that's it. Yan ang difference ng definitive versus intermediate. Now, how about paratenic versus reservoir? Okay? When you say paratenic host, ang key phrase natin dito, ito does not develop. Tapos yung reservoir, life cycle continues. Okay? Ibig sabihin, the parasite develops. Inside the reservoir host, the parasite undergoes development. Inside the paratenic host, the parasite does not develop, but it remains alive and is infective to the next host. So parang ang role ng paratenic host is to transport the parasite to the next host or to the final host or to the definitive host. And this is important for certain parasites in order to get into their definitive or final host. Okay? For certain parasites, transmission is more efficient with the help of a paratenic host. Sulatin ko muna yung examples ko. And shown here below are parts of their respective life cycles. Okay? Showing the paratenic host, no? So, a large fish serves as paratenic host of Diphyllobothrium latum, dilatum. Ayan. And then, a snake or bird serves as paratenic host of Natostoma spinigerum. Okay? Natostoma spinigerum. Okay? If you want to see the life cycles of these parasites, nandiyan yan sa handout niyo, pero itong dilatum nasa page 20, yung Natostoma nasa page 16. Okay? Kasi ang purpose ko lang naman dito at this point, not to discuss the entirety of their life cycles, but to show you the role of the paratenic host. So, hindi pa importante yung life cycle dito, no? Yung role ng paratenic host sa transmission. Okay? O, tingnan nyo, ito yung life cycle ni Dilatum, Diphyllobothrium latum, or Dibotryocephalus latus, yung bagong name niya. Right? You will see here, 1, 2, 3, 4 hosts. Okay? And ito yung paratenic host, yung large fish. Kasi, kaya may large kasi merong small ayan, no? May small fish. Okay? Ito yung copepod na sinasabi ko kanina. Balik tayo dun sa, ayan, no? Diba? Sabi ko, ang copepods ay first intermediate host of dilatum. Yun na yun. Ito yun. Okay? Ayan. Anong nangyayari doon sa loob ng copepod? Yung coracidium nagiging procercoid. Ibig sabihin, merong development sa loob ng copepod. Diba? From coracidium magiging procercoid. So that's the first intermediate host. when the copepod is ingested by a small fish, meron ding development doon sa loob ng second intermediate host. Namely, the procercoid will become plerocercoid. Okay? So may development sa copepod, may development doon sa small fish which is the second intermediate host. At tingnan mo ngayon, ang mangyayari. Pag yung small fish ay kinain itong larger fish na to, wala nang development. Okay? Nakita mo yung plerocercoid pa rin. Okay? And that's how I define parathenic host. Ayan, oh, the parasite does not develop, it remains alive, it remains in that stage. Kung anong stage na na-acquire niya, it remains in that stage until it gets into the next host, the final host, the definitive host, which is man. Okay? And tingnan nyo, may dalawang arrows, no? Merong broken blue arrow pointing to man at merong solid na arrow. Ano ibig sabihin nun? Possible din ang transmission from the small fish to man. But that is less efficient. Okay? At napaka-obvious ng reason, di ba? Ano bang madalas sa kinakain ng tao? Maliit na isda o malaking isda? Mas madalas kinakain natin malaking isda. Kaya mas efficient ang transmission with the help of the parathenic host. Yan ang role ng parathenic host. Okay? Parang binibridge na yung gap. Kasi kung nandito lang siya, pwedeng hindi matransmit. Okay? Kung hindi kumain ng maliit na isda, ang tao, di walang transmission. You see? Kaya, it has to be in a larger fish to make the transmission more efficient. Okay? So, yun ang role ng parathenic host in the life cycle of these parasites. Same goes with Natostoma spinigerum. Okay? So, man may acquire Natostoma from second intermediate host, fishes and amphibians, or from parathenic hosts, snakes and birds. Okay? How about reservoir? Oh, sinabi ko na. In a reservoir host, the life cycle continues. At ano ba ang meaning ng reservoir? Hindi ba source? Yan ang literal meaning. No? Additional source of human infection. Right? Allows the parasite's life cycle to continue and serves as a source of human infection, meaning the reservoir host sheds infective forms in its stool, in its urine. Depende sa species. Oh, in this case, stool. Kasi, ayan, ang illustrated dito, life cycle of Balantidium coli, where pigs serve as reservoir hosts. Diba? So, reservoir host of Balantidium coli. Okay? And the events that take place in a pig host also take place in man. O, ganun yung pag reservoir host, same lang yung events that take place in man. Right? And therefore, the pig is an additional source of infection or is a major source. Kaya nga reservoir, source of infection. Because the infective forms which are cysts may be contracted from, may be acquired from food or water contaminated with pig's feces. Okay? Alright, we now talk about the parasite. At mas maraming terms ang ginagamit natin to refer to or describe parasites. Okay? Obligate versus facultative. Very self-explanatory. Di ba? Obligate means the parasite cannot live without a host. The parasite depends entirely upon its host for survival, for existence. And most parasites are obligate. Kaya nga, parasites eh. Diba? Yung mga exceptions, yun yung facultative. Kaya, ang sulatin lang natin dito, most parasites. Okay? Huwag mo na isa-isahin yan. Kasi nga, kaya nga sila parasites eh. They entirely depend on their host for survival or existence. Okay? So, again, ito lang ang exception, yung mga facultative organisms which are capable of parasitic and free-living existence. Right? And examples include, number 1, Strongyloides stercoralis. Okay? Strongyloides stercoralis has a complex life cycle which includes a parasitic phase and free living phase. Okay? Kaya facultative siya, no? Pwedeng nasa human host, pwedeng nasa environment. Okay? There. And also the so-called free-living amoebas. Sa term pa lang free-living amoebas, which include Naegleria and Acanthamoeba species. Okay? Yan, Naegleria and the Acanthamoeba species. They thrive in the environment and they may cause encephalitis in man. Okay, Naegleria causes primary amoebic meningoencephalitis. Acanthamoeba species may cause both keratitis and granulomatous amoebic meningoencephalitis. So, you see, pwedeng free living, pwedeng parasitic. Okay? Transitory, permanent, or periodic based on the number of hosts required. Right? A transitory parasite only requires one host for its larval stage. A permanent parasite also requires one host, but that one host is for its entire life cycle. Kaya nga permanent. Okay? Ang tawag natin dyan, monoxenous or homoxenous. Okay? Monoxenous. Kapag isa lang ang host or if it is capable of completing its life cycle in only one host. Right? And periodic parasites require two or more hosts. Two or more hosts. Let's give examples. Pag transitory, ang example ko dito, Strongyloides ulit. Okay? Strongyloides, Stercoralis. Right? Specifically, it's indirect or free living cycle. Okay? There. So, indirect cycle. Ayan. In its indirect cycle, it's considered transitory. Why? Because the larva comes from a human host, shed in stool, and those larvae give rise to male and female adults which thrive in the environment. Okay? O yun yung indirect cycle or free living cycle of Strongyloides. Right? So, the human host is only for the larval stage because the adult worms mature in the environment. Okay? Permanent. Ang most notable example, exception ito sa mga cestodes or tapeworms. The only cestode or tapeworm that can complete its life cycle in only one host is Hymenopus nana. Right? H. nana may be acquired by man in its egg stage. And therefore, if it's acquired by man in its egg stage, the entire life cycle is completed from egg to larva to adult without the need for an insect intermediate host. Okay? Kasi pag H. nana, meron din siyang direct, indirect cycle. Pero iba yung meaning ng direct, indirect cycle kay H. nana. Yung direct cycle, direct transmission, hand to mouth, for example, or auto-infection. Okay? Tapos yung indirect transmission via an insect, intermediate host. Nasabi ko kanina, pwedeng beetles, pwedeng fleas. Diba? So therefore, i-specify ko din, direct cycle. Ayan. Okay? Or auto-infection. Okay? Or, pwede namang hindi auto-infection. Pwedeng accidental ingestion of eggs, no? From fecally contaminated food or water din yan. Okay? Because H. nana is the only tapeworm or cestode. Sa mga intestinal cestodes, siya lang yung transmissible via eggs or the eggs are infective because for the rest of the intestinal cestodes, only the larva is infective. Okay? Even its close relative, H. diminuta, is not infective in its egg stage. Ito lang talaga ang infective in its egg stage among the intestinal cestodes. Okay? Kaya nga, it's described as the only cestode with the luxury of completing its life cycle in only one host. Okay? Periodic parasites, napakarami nito, no? Yung may mga intermediate host, one or more, kaya requires two or more hosts. Two hosts kapag isa lang ang intermediate host, okay? More than two hosts kapag meron pang second intermediate host. At nakita nyo kanina si dilatum, meron pang paratenic host, di ba? Oh, so kaya let me just generalize here. Ang most notable na groups of parasites that are periodic include the trematodes or the flukes, the cestodes or tapeworms. Okay? Zoonotic versus eto muna, spurious. Ayan. Okay? Distinguish natin yan kasi pareho yung animal parasites or pwede rin yung spurious ay foreign parasites. Right? Pero kung animal parasites, yung spurious or coprozoic, kailangan ma-distinguish natin sa zoonotic. Okay? Ganito lang yan, no? Kapag zoonotic, nagkukos ng infection in man. Right? They're primarily animal parasites which may be acquired by man and cause infection in man. Okay? Pathogenic din sa tao. Kaya ang tawag doon sa sakit, zoonosis. The agent is zoonotic. The infection is called zoonosis. Okay? There. Pag spurious, pwedeng animal parasites or sabi ko kanina, pwedeng foreign non-human parasites that do not cause disturbance or infection and only pass through the gastrointestinal tract, meaning eventually excreted in stool without causing any disturbance. Yun ang ibig sabihin ng coprozoic. Copro means stool. Diba? Ang ibig sabihin ng copro, feces or stool. Okay? Lumalabas lang sa stool. Na-ingest mo, dadaan sa intestinal tract mo, labas sa stool. Wala nangyari. Spurious lang yun. Coprozoic. Pag zoonotic, nagkukos ng infection. Okay? Let me give examples. Kanina, nabigay ko na tong example B. coli. Diba? Sabi ko na, pig is the reservoir host. Yun yung animal host, pig. But may cause balantidiasis in man. May cause balantidal dysentery in man. Okay, balantidiasis is a zoonosis or zoonotic infection. Diba? Ano pa? Dirofilaria immitis. Okay, Dirofilaria immitis is the dog heartworm. Right? Filaria ito ng dogs, dog filaria, which may also cause lung infection in man. Okay? And let me just generalize at this point yung mga agents of larva migrans. Larva migrans. Agents of larva migrans. Ang dami niyan. Okay? And I suppose familiar naman kayo sa mga yan, no? Mga cutaneous, ocular, visceral, neural larva migrans. Okay? Mga Toxocara canis, Toxocara cati, Ancylostoma caninum brasiliense, etc. Marami pa yan. Okay? Ang ibig sabihin nito, man is not the ideal or not the natural host. And when these organisms are acquired, maturation is arrested at the larval stage. Hindi na nagmamature into adult. Kaya, yung injury is attributed to the migrating larva or larvae na kung saan-saan yan nakakarating. Internal organs, brain, okay? Kaya nga may visceral, may pag ocular sa eyes, okay? Pag sa subcutaneous tissues, yung mga cutaneous larva migrans. Okay? Wandering larvae. Right? Injury is attributed to the wandering larvae. There. So, zoonotic din yan kasi dapat nasa animal sila. If they get into the correct host, which may be dog or cat, they will mature into adult. Pero kung maligaw sila sa tao, hindi naman tao yung natural host nila, the maturation is arrested. at the larval stage. Okay? Dahil kinumpare ko ito sa spurious, unahin ko na rin ng example itong spurious, okay? Sabi ko kanina, it can also be an animal parasite, okay? And it could actually be a parasite that typically causes infection in man. But if you ingest the non-infective form or the incorrect stage, then you will also not develop infection. Ito ang notable example is Fasciola hepatica. You might say, hindi ba ang Fasciola hepatica nagkukos yan ng infection sa tao? Fascioliasis? Yes. If you ingest the metacercaria. Hindi siya spurious kung ang ma-ingest mo metacercaria. Pero kung ang ma-ingest mo ay eggs, Fasciole, I am specifying the stage this time. Importante, specify natin yung stage. Okay? Kasi nga, depende sa stage kung siya ay magkukos ng infection or spurious lang. Kung ma-ingest mo metacercaria from kangkong, edi mag-develop ka ng fascioliasis. Yun yung natural course ng infection, di ba? Pero, kung ang ma-ingest mo ay eggs, paano ba nangyayari yan? When you eat raw liver, inadequately cooked liver of infected animals. Okay? Asan ba yung eggs ng pasyon? Nandun sa liver. Kung ma-ingest mo yon, hindi ka magde-develop ng infection kasi hindi naman infective ang eggs. Kahit pag gaano karaming eggs ang ma-ingest mo, ilalabas mo lang yan sa stool. Spurious yon. Hindi yan magkukos ng any disturbance. Okay? So, pumasok sa bibig mo, lumabas sa stool, spurious yon or coprozoic. Okay? Kaya importante, specify ang stage. Okay? Accidental versus erratic. Ang keyword natin, unusual, unusual. Exceptions din ito, no? Kasi most parasites are, number one, host specific. Number two, habitat specific. Diba? Most parasites are like that. Tropism ang tawag. Pag pumasok siya, alam niya kung saan siyang punta niya. Okay? At host specific din ang most parasites. Pero may mga naliligaw. Naliligaw ng host, pupunta sa unusual host, or minsan tama yung host pero mali yung tissue localization or habitat. Okay? There. Let's give examples. Nabanggit ko na kanina to. Echinococcus granulosus. Okay? Echinococcus granulosus. And even other Echinococcus species. Okay? Anong sabi ko kanina? Anong role ng tao? Man is accidental intermediate host. Anong tawag sa parasite? Accidental parasite. Okay? Yung tao, accidental host. Yung parasite, accidental parasite. Okay? Kasi, wala siya dapat sa tao. Ang natural life cycle, like Echinococcus, completed between dogs and sheep or dogs and rodents. Di ba? You may also include here ito, yung mga agents of larva migrants. Accidental din yan eh, kaya nga hindi nag-mature. Kaya nga na-arrest na yung development sa larval stage. Kasi mali yung napasukan. Dapat ang pasok niya sa dog or sa cat, sa'yo napunta. Okay? At hindi naman suitable yung internal systems ng human host. Kaya hindi na siya magmamature. Larva na lang siya, larva migrans. Kaya, lagay mo din yan dyan. Caenococcus granulosus, saka yung mga agents of larva migrans, accidental parasites din yan. Okay? There. And for erratic parasite na naliligaw naman ng habitat, okay? Ang most suitable dito is Ascaris lumbricoides. Lumbricoides. And that is because of the migratory pattern which the larva of Ascaris undergoes. Okay? In the course of its life cycle. Diba? For some reason, the larvae, once they hatch from the eggs in the intestine, leave the intestine, migrate to the lungs, only to go back to the intestine. Okay? Meron siyang migratory pattern. Right? At doon nagkakaroon ng uh, erratic nature, right? Or ectopic infection ang tawag doon. Pag napunta siya sa ibang lugar, sa ibang organs. Okay, in the course of the migration pattern, when Ascaris larvae get lost to the heart or the liver or other organs, ang tawag doon ectopic ascariasis. Okay? Because supposed to be, the larvae have to go back to the intestine to mature into adult. Kung hindi siya makabalik at naligaw siya sa ibang organ at doon siya mag-mature, that is what we call ectopic ascariasis. Okay? Endoparasite versus ectoparasite. Very self-explanatory nito. Endo, inside, within the body of a host. Ecto, on body surfaces. Okay? Invasion by endoparasites is called infection. Okay? Infection. Basic yan. Invasion by ectoparasites is called infestation. Infestation. And, wag na nating isa-isahin pa. Halos lahat ng parasites na pag-uusapan natin ay endoparasites. O, kaya sulatin natin dito, most parasites. Most parasites are endoparasites. Dahil ang mga ectoparasites lang naman ay itong mga arthropods na ito. Okay? So these are lice, no? Yung Pediculus, Humanus capitis, Humanus humanus, saka Tyrus pubis. O, mga lice yan, ha? Kuto. Okay? Pediculus humanus capitis is the head louse. Head louse. Okay? Pediculus humanus humanus or pwede rin corporis. Pediculus humanus corporis. Body louse yan. Body louse. Okay? Body louse. And then, yung Tyrus pubis is crab louse. Or pwede rin pubic louse. Okay? So, head louse, body louse, crab louse. And Sarcoptes scabiei is its mite. So, lice and mite. No? Its mite si Sarcoptes, the agent of scabies. Yan ang mga ectoparasites. They live on body surfaces. They do not gain access to the internal systems of a human host. Okay? Intermittent parasites only visit the host during feeding time. And some of these, not all, also act as vectors. Okay? Ano ba mga examples? In general, no? These are the blood-sucking arthropods. Okay? Kasi yung feeding is, yan yung blood-sucking activity, no? So in general, these are the blood-sucking arthropods. Okay? In your handout, yan yung mga bed bugs, mosquitoes, yung mga biting flies or blood-sucking flies. Okay? And again, yung mga mosquitoes saka blood-sucking flies, they also serve as vectors. Okay? Yung bed bugs, they are only considered intermittent parasites. Okay? And not considered as vectors. Okay? So therefore, the ectoparasites, the intermittent parasites, and the vectors are all arthropods. Okay? Pwede mong ano yan, no? I-bracket, yung tatlo na yan. At yan yung sinasabi ko kanina na important roles of arthropods in parasitology. They serve as ectoparasites, as intermittent parasites, and as vectors. Okay? And speaking of vectors, they may serve as biologic or mechanical vectors. What's the difference? Well, from the term itself, bio, okay, that means that the vector also serves as host. Ayan, no? Transmits a parasite only after the latter has completed part of its development. Okay? In short, the biologic vector also serves as host either intermediate host or definitive host, depending on the stage or stages that it harbors. Okay? So matatransmit niya lang yung parasite only after the parasite has uh, transformed, no, into a definitive, or rather into an infective stage. Kailangan mag-transform siya into the infective stage. Na-acquire niya in a certain stage and it has to undergo development or transformation into the infective stage. Okay? Mechanical or phoretic vector is only responsible for transporting the parasite via its appendages or external surfaces. Okay? Ibig sabihin, walang role ito sa development ng parasite. They only carry the parasites. Okay? The parasites only adhere to their external surfaces or appendages. Okay? And ito yan, oh. Ayan. Yung first 4 rows, okay? Bracket mo dito sa gilid. Mosquitoes, biting flies, kissing bugs, ticks. These are all biologic vectors. Okay? Biologic vectors of the parasites listed here sa right column. Right? And, needless to say, yung last row, the cockroaches and houseflies, ayan, nakasulat na, they are mechanical vectors. Okay? So, isa-isahin natin, ha? Mosquitoes serve as vectors of Plasmodium species, the malarial parasites, as well as of the filarial worms, Wucherera bancrofti, and Brugia malayi. These are the only filariae that are transmitted by mosquitoes. Biting flies or blood-sucking flies, maraming genera ito, no? They transmit Leishmania species, mga sandflies. Sandflies transmit Leishmania, cheche flies transmit Trypanosoma brucei complex, okay? And certain genera of blood-sucking flies transmit the other filariae. Okay? O iba-iba din yan. May mga mango flies, deer flies, black flies, okay, which serve as vectors for the other filariae. Kasi nga, yung dalawang filariae dito, mosquito-borne. But the other are transmitted by biting flies. Okay? Kissing bugs transmit Trypanosoma cruzi. Ticks, ticks of the genus Ixodes. Specify natin dito, Ixodes. Species of ticks serve as a vector for Babesia species. Okay? And if you remember, this is also the same tick vector of Lyme disease or Borrelia burgdorferi. Okay? Ito naman kissing bugs, redovid ang tawag natin dyan, no? Redovid or triatomine bugs. Okay? Triatomine bugs. Okay? They belong to family Redovidae, kaya Redovid. Genus Triatoma. Okay? There. So, kissing bugs or assassin bugs or cone-nosed bugs. Okay? Cockroaches, houseflies serve as mechanical vectors of, in general, enteric parasites such as Ascaris lumbricoides. Okay? Ayan. Hindi lang Ascaris, no? Yan lang yung most notable. But enteric parasites and even bacteria, no, may be transmitted this way or via mechanical vectors. Okay? So lahat ng parasites na ang infective stage ay nasa stool or in the case of Ascaris, soil transmitted kasi embryonate sa soil, okay, pwedeng matransmit via mechanical vectors, cockroaches and houseflies. Okay? So they carry the infective forms in food or water, no? Sources of food and water. And that's how transmission happens. Okay? Pinagsama ko na ang portals of entry and modes of transmission. Okay? Tabulated here. Right? Kasi related yan eh. There are certain modes of transmission depending on the portal of entry. For example, if the portal of entry is the mouth or the oral cavity, and by the way, this is the most common portal of entry or the portal of entry for most parasites because most parasites are intestinal in nature. Okay? Modes of transmission include ingestion or oral anal intercourse. Okay? When you say ingestion, from food or water. Okay? Food or water. Or pwede rin namang hand-to-mouth transmission. Ingestion din yon. Okay? And most intestinal parasites are transmitted this way. Okay? Via ingestion of infective forms in contaminated food or water. Okay? So that's indirect transmission. Kasi I included here oral anal intercourse, which is a form of direct transmission. Okay? So, ingestion din ito. Actually, direct. Okay? Ang most suitable dito, Giardia lamblia. Di ba? Sa board exam, gay bowel syndrome. Okay? Pero hindi lang Giardia lamblia. Kasi in principle, kahit ano pa yung nandun sa anal region or perianal region, ay pwede mong ma-acquire. If it's the infective stage that is present there. Okay? O kaya, Giardia lamblia. Okay? Ano pa? Pwede ring Entamoeba histolytica. Wala nga Giardia, may Entamoeba naman. O di Entamoeba makuha mo. Okay? Histolytica. Okay? Even C. parvum. Kasi ang C. parvum, immediately infective din ito eh. Okay? Yan. Cryptosporidium parvum. Enterobius vermicularis. Malamang dahil talagang nasa perianal area yan, di ba? Enterobius vermicularis. Yan. At etc. pa yan, The list is actually long. Basta lahat ng parasites na infective stage yung present doon sa stool or doon sa anal region, pwede mong ma-acquire. But again, pag narinig mo yung term na gay bowel syndrome, it is Giardia lamblia that is most commonly associated with that condition. Okay? So, most commonly associated with the so-called gay bowel syndrome. Okay? And again, that is via oral anal intercourse. Okay? If the portal of entry is the skin, possible modes of transmission include larval skin penetration, active larval skin penetration, or skin inoculation by arthropods. Or you may just say arthropod-borne or vector-borne. Okay? Infections ito, no? There. Kapag larval skin penetration, tatlo lang to na must know. Okay? Hookworms. Yan ang number 1. Number 2 is Strongyloides stercoralis. Okay? S. stercoralis. And for these two, the larva that we are talking about is filariform larva. Skin penetration by filariform larva or larvae, which is the infective stage of both hookworms and Strongyloides stercoralis. And the other group of parasites transmitted through larval skin penetration is the schistosomes or the schistosoma species. Okay? So, schistosoma species. Okay? Ito naman, the larva that is capable of skin penetration is called Cercaria. Cercaria. Right? So, larval skin penetration by filariform larvae or by Cercaria or Cercariae. Right? So tatlo lang yan, natatandaan mo. Hookworms, Strongyloides, Schistosoma. Right? Now, how about skin inoculation? Ito lang din yon. Ayan, oh. Ayan, lahat sila. Okay? Di ba? They are the vector-borne parasites. Arthropod-borne parasites. Man acquires infection via skin inoculation by these respective vectors. Okay? Kaya lang din ang susulatin mo rito sa mga examples, no? Plasmodium, species, or the malarial parasites, the filariae, lahat-lahat na sila dyan. Okay? Wuchereria, Brugia, Manzanella, Onchocerca, Loa-Loa, etc. Lahat na ng mga filariae. Okay? And then the kinetoplastids. When I say the kinetoplastids, Leishmania and Trypanosoma. Okay? So Leishmania is species. Okay? And then Trypanosoma. Trypanosoma is species, Brucei and Cruzi. Right? And Babesia species. So lahat yan, vector-borne. Right? Transmitted by skin inoculation or through skin inoculation by arthropods. Okay? Other portals of entry and modes of transmission, urogenital tract, sexual or venereal transmission. Oh, ito yung talagang ano, no? First to come to mind kapag sexually transmitted parasite. Kasi itong mga transmitted through oral anal intercourse ay pwede ring i-consider as sexually transmitted. Okay? Pero ito yung first to come to mind. Kasi venereal transmission talaga ito. Okay? Trichomonas vaginalis siya. Diba? So, Trichomonas vaginalis. Venereal transmission. Okay? There. Nasal passages, intranasal transmission through the nose and into the brain. Right? Ito yung mga agents of meningoencephalitis, namely the free-living amoebas na sinulat ko na kanina. Naegleria, Fowleri, Acanthamoeba species. Di ba? So, I'm specifying this time kasi yan ang nagkukos ng meningoencephalitis and Acanthamoeba species. Okay? There. Transmission is intranasal. When you swim in contaminated waters and water gets into the nose, the organism may find its way to the brain via the olfactory nerve. Okay? So that's how meningoencephalitis ensues. Okay? Transplacental transmission or vertical transmission. Ibig sabihin, mother to fetus. Okay? Mother to fetus transmission. The first to come to mind is T. gondii. Toxoplasma gondii is vertically transmitted. It's one of the so-called torch infections. Okay? Congenital or perinatal infections. It's the only parasite na dun sa acronym na torch. Okay? The T in torch is T. gondii or toxoplasmosis. Okay? At hindi lang yan ang transplacental, no? Even T. cruzi. Okay? There is what we call congenital Chagas disease. Okay? Mother to fetus din yan. Even Plasmodium. Ang tawag naman dyan, congenital malaria. Okay? Possible din yon. Plasmodium species. Okay? There. So, T. gondii, T. cruzi, Plasmodium species. And let me also include here autoinfection. Okay? Very important din to, no? And sa mga recent board exams, no, may mga questions about autoinfection, which may be external or internal. There's external autoinfection and internal autoinfection. Right? At napakadaling intindihin yan. Pag external, so lumabas muna siya, tapos binalik mo lang, parang binalik mo lang, hand to mouth transmission. From anus to hand to mouth. Na-contaminate yung hand mo, galing sa sarili mong anus, ibinalik mo sa bibig mo. Okay? Unknowingly, of course, because of poor hygienic practices. Okay? So, anong examples niya ng hand-to-mouth transmission? Enterobius vermicularis, di ba? Kaya napakadaling matransmit nito or mag-cause ng auto-infection at matransmit sa ibang members ng household because the eggs are immediately infective. Okay? So, Enterobius vermicularis. There. And ano yung sabi ko kanina na only tapeworm that can complete its life cycle in only one host because the eggs are also immediately infective. Hymenopes. Okay? Kaya possible din dyan ang are also infective. Immediately infective. Okay? Kapag internal, in your handout, transformation or production of infective forms in the intestine. Okay? And protozoa and helminths alike may cause internal autoinfection. Okay? Sa mga protozoans, ang most notable si parvum, Cryptosporidium parvum. Okay? When thin-walled oocysts are produced, they may immediately release the sporozoites while still in the small intestine. Hindi na makakalabas sa stool. Kasi lumalabas sa stool yung mga thick-walled. Okay? Pero pag thin-walled ang oocyst, okay, pwede nang mag-cause ng infection right there in the intestine. Okay? Ano pa? Strongyloides, stercoralis. And this is when rhabditiform larvae transform into filariform larvae while still in the intestine. Okay? So, that will add to the existing worm burden. Kaya ang mga cases ng autoinfection, ang effect nito, massive or heavy infection. Okay? Kasi dagdag ng dagdag yung worm burden or yung parasite load. Okay? There. So, Strongyloides cercoralis, ano pa? Capillaria philippinensis. Okay? So, ang Capillaria philippinensis, kakaiba yung female adult kasi may produce atypical eggs that lack shells. Okay? Parang ang analogy niya yung C. parvo. Si C. parvo may thin-walled saka may thick-walled oocyst. Ito naman si C. philippinensis, merong shelled eggs at saka eggs that lack shells. At yung eggs that lack shells, yun yung responsible sa autoinfection. Kasi the larva immediately hatches while still in the intestine. And again, will add to the existing worm burden. Okay? So, let me also include here, okay, asterisk ko si Tinea solium. Kasi kakaiba to si Tinea solium eh. Pag Tinea solium, pwedeng external, pwedeng internal. Right? Exception din ito sa mga cestodes. Okay? And it differs from Tinea saginata in this respect. Right? Because T-solium are also infective. Pero kay malilito ibang usapan yung kay T-solium. Kasi if you ingest the eggs of T-solium, that will lead to a tissue infection. Stage na kasi, it doesn't matter. You will develop intestinal infection. Okay? Pero pag T-solium, if you ingest the larva, you develop intestinal infection. If you ingest the egg, or if you acquire the eggs via internal autoinfection, you will develop a type of tissue infection called cysticercosis. cysticercosis. Okay? So, kaya ito ay pwedeng hand to mouth, okay, hand to mouth, which is external. Yung tao na may tiniasis, pwedeng mag-develop ng cysticercosis through this or via hand to mouth transmission or auto-infection, or reverse peristalsis of eggs, which is internal. Okay? Reverse peristalsis of eggs. Ano ibig sabihin yan? Sa halip na lumabas, bumabalik. Parang nagre-regurgitate through reverse peristalsis, and the eggs will now hatch, liberating the embryo, which will give rise to the larva, which will eventually localize in tissues. And again, that's cysticercosis, which is more fatal than tiniasis. Kaya again, yung tao na may tiniasis ay pwedeng mag-develop ng more fatal type of infection, which is cysticercosis. Okay? So, therefore, pag T-sol yung pwedeng external, pwedeng internal. Yung hand-to-mouth is external, yung reverse peristalsis, internal yon. Hindi na nakalabas nag-regurgitate, nag-reverse peristalsis. Okay? And finally, portals of exit. Anong sabi ko kanina? Most parasites are intestinal in nature, so the most common portal of entry is the mouth. The most common portal of exit, therefore, is the anus. Okay, although, for certain parasites, pwede din ang mouth na portal of exit. For example, Paragonimus westermani. Okay? The eggs of Paragonimus westermani may be shed in sputum. Di ba? Pwedeng sputum, pwede rin stool. Depende yan. If you spit it out, di kung lunukin mo, o di sa stool din ang labrak, Trichomonas vaginalis, at saka Schistosoma hematobium, di ba? Sabi ko kanina, T. vaginalis ang first to come to mind kapag venereal transmission. Sa pangalan pa lang, vaginalis. Okay? So, that's one. And you may also include here Schistosoma hematobium. Okay? O sa urine naman yan. Okay? Because the adult worms inhabit the venous plexuses of the urinary bladder. And non-intact skin. Ano example nito? Dracunculus medinensis. Yan. Dracunculus medinensis may be recovered from skin ulcers. Or the gravid female forces its way out through skin ulcers. Okay? And that's it. We now proceed to the next topic. I compiled here all the important diagnostic procedures, so we won't be very repetitive as we discuss the individual organisms. We'll just mention the diagnostic procedures in passing dahil nandito na yan lahat. Okay? So we will just refer to this section. Okay? And, uulitin ko ang sinabi ko kani-kanina lang. Most parasites are intestinal in nature. The most common portal of entry is the mouth. The most common portal of exit is the anus. Needless to say, the most commonly submitted specimen to the parasitology laboratory is stool. Okay? Kaya itong bulk ng procedures dito, use stool or GI tract specimens. Okay? And let us talk about the specimen considerations first. Okay? So una, if the patient is undergoing medications and the medication is likely to interfere during microscopic examination, then clearance period must be implemented from the last intake of the drug to the time when the patient may already submit stool for examination. Okay? Antacids, antidiarrheals, barium, bismuth, laxative, okay, that may interfere during microscopic examination. So, 7 to 10 days ang recommended clearance period. At least 1 week. Okay? those who are taking antimicrobial agents, because these agents may lower parasite number 2 to 3 weeks clearance period. Okay? And following administration of gallbladder dyes, because these dyes may obscure parasites and make identification difficult, clearance period of 3 weeks. Okay? Sufficient quantity must be submitted. And of course, when you say sufficient quantity, depende yan sa test or tests to be carried out. And of course, we are referring to routine O&P here. Okay, when we say sufficient quantity, sufficient for routine, specify natin, O&P, OVA and parasite examination, fecalysis. Okay? For routine OVA and parasite examination, which includes wet mounting, concentration, and permanent staining, okay, enough na yung 2 to 5 grams. Or, in some textbooks, descriptive terms lang ang ginagamit. Like, thumb-sized, for example, no? Thumb-sized. Yan. Okay? And of course, when giving instruction to the patient, okay, you just say thumb size. Baka timbangin niya pa when you say 2 to 5 grams, right? And of course, that is if the stool is formed. No? Sa Belisario na textbook, kapag liquid, okay, or 5 to 6 tablespoons kapag liquid. Okay? Yan. Approximately 5 to 6 tablespoons. Okay? Avoid contamination with urine because urine is toxic to protozoans or trophozoites. Avoid contamination with water because, of course, that will dilute the specimen, lowering the parasite number. Avoid contamination with soil because soil may contain non-human or foreign parasites or organisms that may be mistaken for true parasites. Okay? The specimen must be placed in an appropriate container. And when you say appropriate container, must be dry, clean, leak-proof, ideally waxed, with sufficient quantity. O, sa Baileys Scots, 1/2 pint capacity. Ayan. Okay? Label the specimen properly, right? Or observe the minimum requirements in specimen labeling. Okay? And of course, the minimum information that must be in the label are patient's full name, age and sex, date and time of collection. You have to specify the date as well as the time the specimen was collected. Kasi merong prioritization scheme sa fecalysis. We'll talk about that in a little while. Okay? To ensure the recovery of parasites that shed diagnostic forms intermittently, collect 3 specimens on separate days or on alternate days within 10 days. Okay? And again, the rationale is there in your handout. Bakit 3 days? At bakit naka-spread over a period of 10 days? Or alternate days or separate days? Kasi there are parasites that shed diagnostic forms not on a regular basis or intermittently, like Giardia and Strongyloides stercoralis. Okay? So that's how you confirm a truly negative result. Okay? Specimen handling and preservation. Ito na yung sinasabi ko kanina. Merong prioritization, no? Depende sa consistency. Okay? Because the consistency of the stool has something to do with the stage or stages likely to be present. Right? Especially if the parasite is a protozoan. Okay? Kasi pag mga protozoa, like yung mga amoebae, Okay? May cyst, either cyst or trophozoite, or a mixture of cysts and trophozoites are present in the specimen. Depende yan sa consistency ng stool. And kaya merong prioritization scheme is because of the fact that trophozoites easily disintegrate. Kaya if you're expecting trophozoites to be present in a specimen, the specimen must be analyzed immediately. Okay? And when do we expect trophozoites to be present in predominance? If the stool is liquid or watery or diary. O kaya, must be examined within 30 minutes. Kasi nga, we expect trophozoites to be present and trophozoites easily disintegrate because trophozoites are susceptible, sensitive to environmental changes. Okay? If the specimen is soft or semi-formed, up to 1 hour because this time we expect um, a mixture of cysts and trophozoites. If the specimen is formed, cysts predominate, and cysts are resistant to environmental changes, to injurious agents. Kaya, up to 24 hours. But take note that it should not be left at room temperature. Okay? Up to 24 hours, pero, ayan o, may kadugtong yan. Beyond 1 hour, the stool must be refrigerated. Don't just leave it at room temperature. Do not place in an incubator. Do not freeze. Okay? The correct manner of preservation, short-term preservation, is refrigeration. Up to 24 hours kasi merong long-term preservation if you're expecting a longer period of delay. In the analysis, the CDC recommends the so-called two-vial system. Okay? And take note that nowadays, meron na mga commercially available na single vial systems. Okay? Ito yung recommendation ng CDC. Pero meron ng mga single vial systems na available commercially. Hindi mo na kailangang hatiin pa yung stool. Kasi kapag two-vial system, which again, the recommendation of CDC, yan yung traditional na long-term preservation, you have to divide the stool specimen in half. Okay? One portion is placed in 10% formalin and the other portion is placed in PVA. Okay? Or, pwedeng other formalin-based or other PVA-based fixatives or preservatives. Okay? So, yan yung basic no? na recommendation ng CDC. Hatiin mo yung one portion in formalin, the other portion in PVA, and you will realize later why you have to divide the stool in half. Okay? We'll talk about the preservatives in a little while. Another must know here is the recommended ratio of stool to preservative. Of course, the principle is when you place the stool in a fixative or preservative, it must be well immersed. Okay? Kaya, the recommended ratio is 1 part stool to 3 parts or 3 volumes of preservative. It must be well immersed, and if the stool is formed, it must be well broken up. You have to homogenize the stool with the preservative. Okay? At ano ba yung mga preservatives na yan? Kasi kanina sabi ko, may mga alternatives. Okay? Aside from formalin and PVA, may mga alternatives. Ito na yan. Okay? Tabulated in your handout. So, itong first three, yan yung mga formalin-based. Okay? So, 10% formalin. Although, if you are expecting protozoans, pwede yung, or recommended ang 5%. Okay? 10% is all-purpose, but 5% is recommended if you are expecting protozoans to be present in a specimen. Okay? At itong dalawa na to, obvious naman, yung F dyan ay formalin or formaldehyde. So they are also formalin-based. And therefore, they have common indications. Okay? And before we talk about the indications, right, may legend ako sa baba ng table. WM, wet mount, CT, concentration technique, PS, permanent staining, and then ito, immunoassay. Okay? Sa baba yan at ayan, no? Okay? So, wet mount, concentration technique, permanent staining. Ano ba yung mga yan? Yan yung sinasabi ko kanina na ONP. Routine ONP. Pag sinabing routine ONP examination, yan yung tatlong steps. Okay? Wet mounting, concentration technique, permanent staining. Okay? Plus minus immunoassay. Kasi may mga parasites na may available immunoassay kits. Okay? Let me talk about that first. Ito, before we fill in the table, ano ba yung immunoassay? Kasi pag narinig mong immunoassay, ang unang papasok sa isip mo, serum testing, antibody testing in serum. Right? Pag immunoassay, pwedeng antigen detection, pwedeng antibody detection. Right? And in this case, antigen detection to kasi ang ginagamit mo is stool eh. 'Di ba? So detection of stool antigens. Or the term for that is copro antigen testing. Okay? Copro. Di ba sabi ko kanina, copro means stool. Okay? So, copro antigen test. Okay? Specifically for Entamoeba histolytica, Giardia lamblia, Cryptosporidium parvum. Okay? Ito yung most notable, itong tatlo na to. Ibig sabihin, meron silang available immunoassay kits for copro-antigen detection. Okay? Entamoeba histolytica, Giardia lamblia, Cryptosporidium parvum. At ang format or platform ay lateral flow assay or immunochromatographic technique. Okay? So lateral flow assay or immunochromatographic technique. Ito yan, sa picture. Ayan. And maybe ginawa nyo to sa laboratory, no? There. So, it comes with a buffer for homogenizing the stool. So, i-homogenize mo yung stool dito, right? And then, you'll just place drops of the homogenized specimen into the sample well. Okay? There. And, again, pwede itong 2-in-1 or 3-in-1. Ayan, nakita nyo ba sa label? Entamoeba giardia crypto. So, for this case, 3-in-1 yan. Pwede mo ma-detect alinman sa tatlo na yan or you can possibly detect multiple infections. Kasi possible yon, no? 2 or all 3 of them. Right? Ito naman 2-in-1, Giardia crypto. So, ganun din. You homogenize the stool and then place drops of the homogenized specimen into the sample well or sample wells. And you just watch out for colored lines. Okay? If there are colored lines in the test and control zones, positive. Di ba? Ganun lang yon. So, now, let us fill in the table. Sabi ko, itong formalin, MIF, SAF, have common indications. Sila formalin-based. Okay? Ang advantage ng MIF, fix and stain. Right? Where merthiolate and iodine serve as the staining components. Okay? So, merthiolate, iodine ang staining component, kaya fix and stain. Ito namang sodium acetate, acetic acid, formaldehyde, ang advantage nito, appropriate for permanent staining. Although, not for all types of permanent stains. So, ganito kapag formalin-based, ang basic ay appropriate for wet mount and concentration technique. Check ko na lang, So, pwedeng gamitin for wet mounting. And by the way, wet mount is DFS. Ang tawag natin dito sa lab, DFS, direct fecal smear. Same lang yun, Ito, yung wet mount is slash DFS yan, direct fecal smear. Okay? So, pwede siya for DFS, pwede for concentration technique. Same goes with MIF and SAF. Yan ang sinasabi kong common indications. Okay? Now, needless to say, ang mga formalin-based fixatives in general, not appropriate for permanent staining. Kaya nga two-vial system yung recommendation ng CDC. Kasi pag permanent staining, PVA naman. Okay? But, as I have already mentioned, at nakasulat yan, ayan, oh. Okay? Pwede rin ang SAF for permanent staining, pero hindi lahat ng permanent stains. Specifically, iron hematoxylin only. Okay? Kaya, kung ang gagamitin mong permanent stain ay trichrome at hindi iron hematoxylin, ay hindi rin siya pwede. O kaya nga, primarily for wet mount in concentration technique lang ang mga formalin-based fixatives. Okay? O, mamaya yung immunoassay, balikan ko yan later. Kasi ito yung second group ng mga fixatives, right? PVA-based fixatives include PVA, Shodins, at saka modified PVA. Okay? Then yung Shodins with or without PVA. Right? And ang disadvantage nito, both Shodin's fluid and PVA contain mercuric chloride, which is toxic to man. Highly toxic. At yun ang reason why it is modified to address its toxic nature. It is modified by replacing mercuric chloride with either zinc sulfate or copper sulfate. Okay? Which are, of course, less hazardous than mercury chloride. Okay? So, ngayon, kung yung formalin-based fixatives ay appropriate for wet mount and concentration, itong mga to ay hindi. Okay? So, not appropriate for wet mount and concentration. They are only appropriate for permanent staining. And again, yan ang reason why CDC recommends two-vial system. Because there are tests that may only be performed on formalin fixed stool and tests that may only be carried out on PVA preserved stool. Okay? O, ngayon, yung last column tayo. Ano ba ang recommended for use in immunoassays or coproantigen testing? Ideally, fresh stool must be used. Yan talaga ang preferred, no? If immunoassay will need to be carried out, okay, it is recommended to use fresh stool. Observation is necessary, okay, for immunoassay later. Then, ano ang recommended? Well, ang pwede lang gamitin ay formalin-based fixatives, especially 10% formalin and SAF. MIF is not recommended, not appropriate because of methylate, because of the staining components which may interfere in the color reaction. Kasi di ba, ang positive result, colored lines Okay? And yung methylate, somewhat orange-red ang color niyan. And pwede mag-interfere doon sa color reaction in the lateral flow assay or immunochromatographic technique. Kaya, of the formalin-based fixatives, either 10% formalin or SAF lang ang pwede mong gamitin if fresh stool cannot be used for immunoassay or if immunoassay will be delayed. Okay? So, these are also not appropriate for immunoassay. Alright? Let's now talk about note of number 1, color or appearance, and number 2, consistency. Okay? And I did not anymore include the other colors or appearances, the other possible stool appearances na wala namang kinalaman sa parasitology because they are discussed in AUBF under stool or uh, feces, no? Examination of feces sa Strassenger. Okay? There. You have a table there for the other possible colors. So, ang nilagay ko lang dito ay yung may bearing sa parasitology. Okay? So, of course, brown is the normal color or appearance. So, normal ito due to urobilin / stercobilin. Okay? Due to urobilin / stercobilin. There. Black, tari, upper GI bleeding. Okay? Na pwedeng related sa parasitic infection. Okay? Mucoid bloody dysentery. At yung dysentery ay pwede rin parasitic. Okay? Pwede amoebic or balantidial dysentery. There. Okay? Another parameter that you must take note of is consistency. Okay? Normal is soft to well formed. So, yan ang normal. And range yan from soft or semi-formed. Okay? And why is consistency important in parasitology? Number one, it gives clues on the stage or stages of parasites likely to be present. Okay? And again, that applies to the protozoans. Number two, it determines the sensitivity of egg counting techniques. Okay? Egg counting techniques. There. CDC, which shows the stage or stages predominant in its stool consistency. Okay? So cysts predominate in formed stools, while trophozoites predominate in watery or liquid or diarrheic stools. And for soft and loose stools, it's a mixture of cysts and trophozoites. If you remember kanina, I talked about prioritization. I said, if you are expecting trophozoites in predominance, and that is if the stool is liquid or watery, must be examined or analyzed within 30 minutes. And again, that is because trophozoites are sensitive or susceptible to environmental changes, while cysts are resistant. Kaya pwede mag-stand ng mas matagal. Okay? There. And ito naman yung sensitivity of egg counting techniques. Of course, may bearing dyan ang stool consistency because the drier the stool, the higher the count. If the stool is watery or liquid, then that means it's dilute. And that would result in lower counts. Okay? You also take note of macroscopic structures. If they are seen or present, if they are present, there are macroscopic structures that need to be reported, such as adult worms of nematodes or scoliosis and proglottids of tapeworms or cestodes. Important yun, no? Especially in distinguishing between Taenia solium and Taenia saginata. The recovery of gravid proglottids will enable speciation of Taenia solium versus Taenia saginata. Okay? Because eggs alone are not enough to speciate, to identify if it's Taenia solium or Taenia saginata. Okay? We commonly use gravid proglottids. Scoliosis may also be used. Okay? Kasi meron ding difference between solium and saginata in terms of the presence or absence of hooks. But more commonly, Right? Kasi ang scoliosis usually nare-recover yan post-treatment. Okay? Ang talagang um, routinely shed in stool, okay, ay eggs at saka proglottids, gravid proglottids. Okay? Alright, so microscopic examination or ONP. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina, na routine, ova, and parasite examination. And again, the components are, number one, wet mount. At sabi ko, yung wet mount ay same lang sa direct fecal smear. Correct? And then number two, concentration technique. Number three, permanent staining. Right? Wet mount or DFS is characterized by low sensitivity. And that is because we only use a small amount. Approximately 2 milligrams of stool. Okay, mixed with a drop of 0.85% saline or NSS. Okay? Yan yung routine na wet mount or DFS. Saline mount, okay? Which is useful for demonstrating the motility of protozoan trophozoites. Okay? But if you are trying to demonstrate cysts or yung mga nuclear and cytoplasmic structures of cysts like amoebic cysts, okay? Better to prepare an iodine mount. Ito yun, no? May be stained by temporary dyes such as Lugol's or the Anthony's iodine. Okay? Iodine. Okay? Ang nire-recommend, Lugol's or the Anthony's iodine. Okay? For demonstrating or enhancing the demonstration of nuclear structures as well as glycogen masses or glycogen vacuoles in amoebic cysts. The problem with iodine is it is toxic to trophozoites. Kasi nga ang trophozoites sensitive to injurious agents. Okay? And iodine is one of those. That's why if you are expecting trophozoites in predominance, and that is more likely, no? Kasi in cases of amoebic dysentery, for example, dysentery nga liquid yung stool. Okay? So we are expecting trophozoites to be present in predominance. Okay? So ang alternative is methylene blue. Nair's buffered methylene blue. Okay? So Nair's buffered methylene blue, okay, for trophozoites. Okay? Or you may say for liquid stools, no? Liquid stool. Kasi ito kapag formed stool, or again if you are demonstrating cysts. Okay? And it's not only for demonstrating cysts and trophozoites, but also for demonstrating Hellmann's eggs and larvae. But again, ang main issue is the low sensitivity. That's why if there is suspicion of parasitic infection, but the wet mount did not yield positive result, then you may need to perform a more sensitive technique, which is concentration. Okay? And why are concentration techniques more sensitive than wet mount? Because of the larger amount of stool used. Okay? So kaya ito higher sensitivity. Okay? Higher sensitivity because of the use of a larger amount of stool. Okay? So 1 to 1.5 grams of stool, or sa Bailey Scotts, 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon. Okay? Ganyan karami. Napakalayo niyan sa 2 milligrams. Okay? Kaya kung wala ka nakita sa 2 milligrams, then you are very likely to demonstrate parasites in 1 to 1.5 grams if truly parasites are present. Okay? So what are the concentration techniques? Either sedimentation or flotation. Okay? Examples of sedimentation techniques include the FECT and AECT. FECT stands for formalin, ether or ethyl acetate concentration technique, where formalin acts as fixative or preservative, and therefore one of the advantages of this technique is the sediment may be medium is a fixative or preservative. Okay? Ether or ethyl acetate. Ethyl acetate is now routinely used. Okay? It has largely replaced ether because of the chemical hazard associated with ether. But same lang ang action to extract fats. Okay? Extracts fats. Okay? And FECT is appropriate for most protozoan cysts, less distortion of cysts in your handout. Okay? Less distortion of cysts compared to AECT. Kasi ang AECT, acid yung medium. Strong acid ang ginagamit. Kaya that may cause some distortion of cysts. Okay? And zinc sulfate. Okay? Less distortion compared to AECT and zinc sulfate flotation. Okay? Also appropriate for helminth eggs, including operculate eggs and schistosome eggs. And also helminth larvae. Okay? How about AECT? That's acid, ether, or ethyl acetate concentration technique. The medium is 40% hydrochloric acid, which acts as clearing agent. Okay? Removing albuminous or mga mucoidal substances. That's why the plug of debris is thicker in AECT. And that's actually one of the disadvantages. Parasites may be lost to the thick plug of debris. Right? So, anong indications nito for animal parasites and also for Trichuris, Capillaria, and Schistosoma? Now, this is the setup. No? After centrifugation, you will come up with the following layers. Let's identify the layers from top to bottom. By the way, pag sinabing sedimentation techniques, okay, the specific gravity of the parasites is greater than the specific gravity of the medium. Okay? And therefore, kaya nga sedimentation, we expect the parasites to settle to the bottom layer. Okay? So, kaya ganito, no? After centrifugation, 4 layers. The topmost layer is ether or ethyl acetate. Okay? Ito yung plug of debris which must be loosened by wringing prior to decantation. Okay? So the technique involves inserting an applicator stick, okay, and then wringing, right, to loosen the plug of debris because it tends to adhere to the inside walls of the test tube or glass. Okay? And then this is your sedimentation medium, right? Formalin or 40% hydrochloric acid. Okay? And of course, ito yung sediment, which is expected to contain the parasites if they are indeed present. So parasites are recovered from the sediment. And so, after loosening the plug of debris, you decant the first 3 layers, leaving only a small amount for redissolving the pellet. Okay? So, decanted yan. Yung first 3 layers, decanted after wringing. Okay? So it's almost 12 noon, so putulin ko na muna dito. We'll continue at 1 p.m. Thank you.